I'm happy to welcome in a guy that Syracuse fans are going to recognize, Syracuse assistant coach Gerry McNamara. Gerry, how are you?
Doing well, Mike. Great beard. You look fantastic.
Right back at you.
Thank
Like the beard. Of course, people are used to seeing you try this out every once in a while.
you.
Um, got you in because we want to talk about the 2003 national championship game. And this is the anniversary of your win over Kansas in New Orleans at the Superdome back in 2003. We're going to get into the whole season and everything, but can you believe it's been 17 years?
I can't. It's amazing how quickly it's gone. I think part of it being the fact that I've been kind of immersed into this since then. Certainly the last 10 years since I've been back. So it's incredible. It really is how long it's gone. I remember when we hit 15 years, I was like, I can't believe it's 15 years now. 2 years later, in the blink of an eye, it's 17. So it's incredible. But, I talked about it on a radio show recently I don't think a day goes by where you don't think about that moment. It doesn't matter how long time goes by. It's something that daily, you certainly recall.
You were just a freshman, and along with a few other guys who were just freshmen back then. Carmelo Anthony, Billy Eadlin were freshmen. Hakeem and Craig Forth, Josh Pace were only sophomores. Going into that start of that season, what were your expectations for the team?
Yeah, I didn't really know. It was really right away. I knew, like, man, this is like a big jump from where I'm coming from as far as talent and speed and athleticism. And right away it was kind of evident, like we kind of gelled. We all enjoyed being around each other and certainly had the pieces in place to be competitive. But it was probably the Georgia Tech game prior to Christmas break where I kind of sat back. I knew how talented that team was, and as talented enough to go to the national championship game the following season without Chris Bosh. Chris Bosh, Jared Jack, those guys were terrific. I think B.J. Elder. And we beat them pretty handily here at the Dome. That was kind of my first, like, going into the December 22nd Christmas break, like going home for Christmas, like we might be not just pretty good, like we might be really good.
I remember that game. It's funny that you focused right on that game. A lot of folks look back at the season opener, which was at Madison Square Garden, and you guys came out of the box and lost to Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
How was that loss? Especially, like we said, a very young team, a lot of freshmen and sophomores, and you lose your opener.
Well, it was obvious what we had in Carmelo. He certainly wasn't intimidated by that stage. And, so right away we knew, like, not that we didn't already know, but, we knew right away, like, all right, this guy is spectacular. Everything's going to flow through him. I think for me, even though we lost, it was kind of like, yeah, man, I belong here. I could have done a lot more. I didn't shoot it particularly well, and so even though we lost, it was a confidence boost for me, realizing that I'm fine. I'm okay on this stage. I can make a big impact here, and I think we just kind of I don't know how many we reeled off from there. I think it was 12, 13 games. I think from that stage, and you saw the trajectories of both teams that they were, because Memphis was very young as well, and I think they ended up going to the NIT that year, and we obviously went on to win a national championship. So, it was just more so than anything a learning experience, number one, with a young group, and for me personally, a confidence booster of being like, I belong here, I can make a big impact here, and from that point on, we just continue to progress and get better.
I thought there were two turning points in the regular season for the team, and the one I think happened in early January when Billy Eadlin finished off his 12-game suspension, and he returns, and Coach Boeheim had to work him into the rotation now. And he actually lost 2 of the first 4 games that he played in. Was that part of the process of incorporating him, or was that just a coincidence that those losses came at that time?
I think more so coincidence. Do I think there was probably an adjustment for everybody? Yeah. The great thing, when you put Billy in, and if I were in with him, I could move off the ball and now be more primarily a shooter or scorer. Didn't have as much on-ball priority, which I liked as well, being on the basketball. So it gave me the 2 different positions where I can kind of be a factor in. So it was a little adjustment, I think, for everybody. And then as far as rotational pieces go, it changes things a little bit because you have such a great player and Billy coming in, he can impact the game. So, I think that's the fine line with coaching is, even if it might cost you a game or two, you understand the long-term relevance of it and how important this guy's going to end up being. So even though it may have been coincidental or maybe just a little bit of adjustment, in the long-term scheme of things, it was going to make us a significantly better team. And it certainly did. Billy's a terrific player. His vision and ability to touch the paint was unlike anybody I've ever played with. He played such a crucial role down the stretch for us and winning big, crucial games in the NCAA tournament.
The other turning point came later in the season, regular season, and there was a road trip to Michigan State. Very good team, tough place to play, and you guys went on the road and you won. It's a rarity to go and play outside the conference that late in the year, but that road win led into other road wins at Georgetown and Notre Dame, and like racking up road wins over those teams. I remember at that point thinking, this team's starting to really gel here. They could be a problem for somebody in March.
Yeah, I remember Hakeem in that Michigan State game. We had become so accustomed to Carmelo being who he was and what he's capable of doing. But, I've heard Troy Weaver talk about this before of how important he thought that Melo's existence was to Hakeem's confidence. Carmelo was one of the first guys to really, push Hakeem to a different level and exude confidence into him. And I just remember some of the plays that he made. He had a dunk in that game, a spin, his patented spin dunk. And I just remember walking away from that game and just looking at Hack like, man, this dude is going to be incredible, just special. And, obviously he had an historic career here. But that was my big takeaway there. I mean, it's not a difficult place to play. That's up there with as difficult an environment as I've ever played in. And I was a non-factor in that game. I did nothing. And, I remember just walking away from that and just really kind of looking at Hakeem in a different light. Like, man, this dude is just scratching the surface of what he's going to become. And it's all up from there.
All right. So now we fast forward, we get to the tournament. You're in Boston. Your first round win over Manhattan, kind of like your typical first round game.
Mm-hmm.
A really tough, scrappy team that's won its league, but you guys manage. I'm going to talk about the next game, Oklahoma State. You guys fell behind early by 17 points. What were you thinking at that point in the game?
Good run. I can't believe this. We've never played this poorly. We've never been jumped on like this. We had come back so many times from double digits in that season that was kind of our MO, was like, this group doesn't quit. We keep clawing and fighting. But this seems like such an insurmountable amount. But the great thing was how early it happened, that it gave us an opportunity to completely change the pace of the basketball game with the pressure. And when we did that, that's when Josh Pace, Billy Edelin, and Jeremy McNeil changed the forecast of a national championship run. Those guys won the game. I mean, clear and plain and simple as that. Jeremy, we've said it before, they didn't have much of a difficult time beating it up the court, but they had a very difficult time getting around Jeremy McNeil around the rim. And some of his plays that he made at the rim, blocking really good players, Tony Allen, athletic guys, just completely changed everything. It changed the flow. It sped up the game a little bit. It gave us a little bit more possession usage. And then we were just able to get off from the second half from there. But what it did was it closed the gap by the time I think we were at 4 or 6 at halftime from 17. I think that was the number. And then right as soon as the second half started, we just same thing. We kept on the pressure and we kept, kind of moving it and pushing pace. And then we got Carmelo going, then I got going. And, just early on, it looked like it was just out of our hands, and the pressure and the possession usage completely changed the tempo of that basketball game.
Can we talk about the shot that you had in the second half? I think it was maybe 14, 15 minutes ago in the game, with the blood streaming down your face. I mean, it's something out of a movie that never happens actually in a real game, because if a referee spots you, he's blowing his whistle and stopping the game because you had blood coming down your nose.
Yeah, well, I had bumped heads with Victor Williams. I tried to fake one way, and I almost faked myself out, and I bumped heads with him. And when I came off to the left wing, I don't know if it was prior to coming to the left wing or I caught it and we swung it back and I came back off to the right wing. At one point I had checked. Because I had hit my head so hard, I assumed as soon as I hit it, oh boy, that's going to open up. Mm-hmm. And when I checked initially, I didn't see anything on my hands. And then right after I hit the shot on the right wing, I checked again and I saw blood on my hands. So I don't know if did that give us our first lead, I think. And,
yes, it did. First lead of the game.
From there on out, it was just, we were the Cuse from there on out.
You go on to Albany, Sweet 16 win over Auburn. The defense takes over against Oklahoma, and you held that team to, I think they scored in the 40s.
Yeah.
And they couldn't make a three. So you're off to New Orleans. The Texas game. That was Carmelo's ultimate moment there. I mean, he had a great season, but he put up career high in points and rebounds that night. Can you remember, watching him do his thing against Texas and what they were trying to do with him?
His second half dominance, I thought, was his staple here. I thought that second half performance of what he did in the national semifinal game against Texas was his masterpiece. I don't know how many straight he had scored, but I think he scored 10 or 12 straight at one point to start the second half. He was doing it from every angle. He was doing it inside and out. I think 33, I think he finished with. And the great thing about performances like that is you're not doing it in a blowout. You're doing it in a game where every single possession is important because every single possession matters because the game is so close. And I think, if I recall, they had taken a 50-48 lead or somewhere in that range in the second half, and it might have been their first lead. And, we come back down. Where is he? Here you go. And, he's just so skilled and so talented and so physical. I tell guys that I coach now is like after people played Carmelo, they'd always be like, man, because he's like the offensive hack. He's always putting a body on you, putting pressure on you, creating physical contact, using angles. And his jab series is unlike anybody that's played the game. He's incredible off that right jab and being able to set up the jumper, get you off your feet and set up the drive. And when he wants, he plays his back to the basket, and then he offensive rebounded. I mean, he touched every single phase of the basketball game in the Texas game, especially in the second half. To me, as important a performance as we've had in our program's history was that second half against Texas. He was incredible.
I remember after that Texas game, in the post game, the freshmen had all played great that day. I think especially the second half. If I'm not mistaken, like almost all of your points in the second half came from you, Billy, and Carmelo, or something like that. And you were asked about freshmen and playing like freshmen. And you said something along the lines of, well, if we play like freshmen on Monday night, we're not going to win the national championship.
Yeah. Sounds about right.
It does. It's got the McNamara confidence, right?
Well, like I said, with that particular group and with the young group, you have to be a little bit naive, a little bit cocky, a little bit confident. But, I think all those characteristics, they take form because of the work. I mean, it's not, that's the one thing when we hit that stage, it felt like not just do we belong here, we've prepared to be here. We had a group that worked really, really hard. The practices we had after we had lost in the Big East tournament that year, coming back before Selection Sunday, were probably as competitive as any practice we had all year. And I think it was the mindset of we don't like this feeling. We don't like to lose. So when we hit that stage, it was more so that we had built the confidence because of the work we had put in to step on that platform and be like, yeah, we're ready. We're ready to go. I don't care who we're playing against or what the opponent is. We feel like we have earned the right to be in this position.
There was one play in that Texas game, and we can't move on to the championship game without touching on Hakeem's dunk.
Yeah.
Over Royal Ivy.
You're going to refer to what it's?
Nope.
Okay.
No, I'm
we'll
not.
Leave that up to the viewers.
If they know, they know. If they don't know, they don't need to, I guess.
I guess.
But it's Hakeem over Royal Ivy.
Yeah. Yeah. Incredible. You know, it's there's two plays that drive me crazy that are officiated. The double foul.
Mm-hmm.
The double foul. Oh, it's a foul on both of you. And then the offensive basket, but it's a charge. I think now in today's age, the play he made on the loose ball into the short corner, and I've watched the game a few times over all these years, and you could hear Jeremy McNeil saying, Hakeem, 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 to pass it to him, if you listen to it.
Oh, I never heard that.
And I think when Hack got the rebound and he turned and face, and he gets one dribble from anywhere inside of 18 feet, you know what the result is. And in today's day and age, you're talking about player freedom of movement and being outside of the restricted angle or restricted area, and you can't take the charge once he's into his motion. You know, I think the unfortunate thing of all that, and I'm happy they called it a basket because it was such a great play, but it probably should have been an and one. You know, in
today's game, it's an and one.
Yeah, it's an and one, but just such a huge. I mean, he had two defining moments in back-to-back games in the Final Four. You know, the play along the short corner where he takes off and slams it down over a great defender in Royale Ivy, and then the play he makes in the corner to seal a national championship win. I mean, but that play against – I've heard Carmelo talk about that play, and he talks about you could feel like it elevated everybody because of what he did. And there's not a lot of guys that can make a play like that. Hakeem Warwick is, you know, they call him the human helicopter man, and you know, that's up there. That singular play it's right up there with the greatest plays. His dunk against Notre Dame against Lattimore is right up there too. Anybody that watched that dunk can certainly relate to that.
And a totally different one, flat-footed as opposed to a running
off
start.
The vertical.
All right, so you guys move on to Monday night. Carmelo had hurt his back a little bit in the Texas game. I think he crashed into the scorer's table. Was there any concern about how healthy he was going to be, how ready he was going to be on Monday night against Kansas?
Not based on his attitude. You know, we had no fear or knowledge of how bad he was hurting because he didn't show it. You know, I think one of the narratives that was created when we were there and playing in that venue was how he was just smiling and having fun, the excitement of being there. So that's how he was on and off. You know, he was just upbeat, energetic, ready to go. Like I said, prepared, just felt ready, and we had all prepared for that moment. And you know, leading into Monday night against Kansas, I had nothing. You know, based on the way he acted and his mentality, there was no fear in any of our minds that he was going to, you know, be hampered by anything.
Of course, the Kansas game, Monday night, the championship, you're in New Orleans, Superdome, and you came out red hot. 6 3-pointers in the first half of that game, 18 points at halftime. And you guys had established a big lead. I think you were up double digits. You know, where did that come from? Were they paying too much attention to Carmelo, which would be understandable? And what did I feel like, you know, which one of the threes got you going?
Yeah, I think early on he created my first one. He penetrated, I slid down below the free throw line on the right wing, and he hit me with a bounce pass. I think that was my first one. So, and then I had one or two off dribble handoffs with one dribble. I think the only two they really lost me on were that one, the first one, and then when I think it was a 1-3-1 zone, and I said, all right, you know, Billy hit me in a 2-guard set. We split the top of the zone, and I figured I already had predetermined on the second or third pass if I have any clear daylight, I'm going to launch. And I don't know what number that was as far as in regards to, you know, of the 6 that I hit that it was, but that was kind of the one that I felt like I already had a rhythm. You know, but early on it was a couple step-ins I think that got me going, particularly the one that Melo hit me with where I was stepping in somewhat easy of a rhythm shot. And, you know, I'll tell you this, I don't think I had easy shots in the first half, except for that one that Melo created. I know for a fact I didn't have any. I had one in the second half that I know I should have made, and it was because of the attention. And, the way I look at it is you do your job. So now what that does is it creates attention on the perimeter, which creates space in the middle. So now you got more room for the best player in the country to operate. So by doing my job and hitting the ones that I should hit, it creates more attention. So it might not be easier for me, but it helps Billy, it helps Josh, it helps for Carmelo. It puts 4-on-3 or 4-on-4 on the backside of it. And now if Melo can draw 2 and misses, now you're still in good offensive rebounding position. So it was just a few early that I hit that got me in a rhythm. And then I probably took 2 bad ones that went in. Sometimes it works that way. And, it was important. It got us off to a good start.
The second half was tougher. After scoring 50-something in the first half, you guys are held to 28 in the second. And you're having the fight and scrap. I mean, the baskets were, Josh Pace type baskets, Billy Edlin type baskets. Yeah, like 2-yard runs.
Yeah.
Tough
ones.
So how did you guys manage to hang in there with Kansas trying to chase you down?
Probably the longest 5 minutes of my life. I think it was the 5-minute mark that I looked up and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then it was literally from the 5-minute mark underneath, you knew they were so good and you knew they were going to make a run. And when you have a lead that we have, you almost, you're looking at that thing a little bit to tick and tick and tick. And they just applied pressure. They were physical. They overplayed. They tried to pick up similar to like the Oklahoma State game, they tried to ramp up the pressure and speed up the game a little bit. I turned it over a couple times on poor plays. And the biggest play of the game was they got a rebound and Josh Pace stole the outlet and hit Carmelo for a 3. That was the turning point. That was the biggest, in my mind, the biggest possession of that basketball game. And typical JP makes the right play and typical Carmelo comes up big when it matters most. And I don't know what the score was at that stage, but I think it might have been a 1-possession game, and it pushed it back to 2. So it was somewhere in that range, and that was the one that gave us a little bit of breather. When Josh Pace makes that steal and hits Carmelo and he hits the 3, that was the defining moment in my mind of that basketball game.
The final defensive possession, you guys are up 3. Hakeem has missed the free throw. Would have been nice, but he misses it. So you're holding on to that 3-point lead, and they come down. You're actually, a lot of people forget this, you're on the bench for this. Coach went with Billy and Josh at the top of the zone and moved Quest to the back line. He had Craig out of the game, and he had Hakeem at the 5.
Yeah. Size, yeah. Get as much. Well, the previous possession they had, Coach Williams still at North Carolina, they like to screen the top of the zone, and they hit the left wing, and then they tried to down screen on me, and Kirk Heinrich took a shot about 6 feet behind the 3-point line, and I vertically contested, and the thing rattled as close to going into the basket as you could get. And I think probably right then and there, Coach was thinking in his mind, like, all right, I could probably use 2 or 3 more inches on that perimeter. So it took me out. So I remember Craig was sitting next to me during, I think, Hakeem's ensuing free throw or in that stage. And I just remember putting my arm through Craig's and just like kind of squeezing it, just being like, please, God, let us get through this. But it's a helpless feeling when you're sitting there on the bench, I just completely helpless. But, that's the best coaching move is go with the best personnel to give you the best chance. And we had size and speed and length on the perimeter. And, those guys are as good as it gets when it comes to that.
What was your view of the Hakeem Warwick block in the corner against Michael Lee?
Diagonally, looking, watching him close gap from the left block to the left corner in the blink of an eye. So just seeing that block, that shot kind of get deflected into the stands. And my first reaction is to look at the clock. How much is left? Oh, no, that's right. You don't need to put 1.3 on there. That's right. That's correct. It's 0.6, 0.7, somewhere in there. So you know, that was my recollection of the block, was just Hakeem covering that ground and kind of seeing the side of him extend and be able to deflect it into the corner.
And then the game finally ends. They get one last shot. No, they don't draw iron. In that moment, what was that like for you?
I've said this many times. It's the only time in my life that I just ran. I didn't know exactly where I was going. I was just so excited, and I couldn't, you know, in complete disbelief. You work so hard for moments like that, and you try to envision it and picture it, but for it to become reality is a difficult thing to explain. So, you know, pure elation. Yeah, I just remember at one point I was next to Billy, and we were running to half court, and I think Todd Forcier, our strength coach, who's now with Portland Trailblazers, Todd had, you know, typical physical fashion, like Todd liked to be aggressive. He just started firing guys into one area. And I remember just like getting toppled on, and then Queth got thrown, and his heel skimmed off my, you know, the heel of his shoe skimmed down my face. And as I was sitting there, all I heard was, get off, get off me. And it was Mello on the bottom. You know, and he's talked about it before, how we joked before the game, you know, I'm not going to be on the bottom of the pile. We really did joke about that. Like, we
Really?
our mind frame before the game, like, yo, when we win this thing, like, I'm not the one on bottom. That ain't happening to me. And it just so happened that, you know, the best player in the country was there at the bottom. And, you know, I've watched that replay, and I'm actually going, hey, and I'm trying to pull people off of him because I could hear him screaming on the bottom of it. But it was, it was just one of those things. You know, it's what we chase. You know, I've never had that type of feeling of just pure excitement. You know, I've been chasing it. I've been trying to get that again.
Well, that's really amazing. It's been 17 years. It sounds like the memories are still pretty fresh for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, you don't forget things like this. You know, I think people that follow our program don't forget things like this. You know, anybody that watched that game, whether in attendance or at home, remembers it. They remember where they were and the reaction that they had. And yeah, just a special moment. I still remember walking into the greatest moment of all that was walking into the team hotel for me, you know, and my family's at the elevator. You know, I still get kind of emotional seeing my father. You know, that to me was, yeah, everything kind of came to a head.
Wow. Well, listen, I appreciate you taking a trip down memory lane with us here on the anniversary of the game. April 7th, 2003, New Orleans Superdome. Congratulations again. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.